So welcome you all in the 19th lecture of embedded system. So in the last class we have talked about the real-time operating systems, and the main job of real-time operating system is the task scheduling, right? So in the last class we have seen that there are different types of uh, task schedulers, which can be broadly classified into majorly two categories, that is clock driven task scheduling as well as event based task scheduling. And event based task scheduling is also known as priority based task scheduling, right? So in the last class we have seen that the job of the operating system is to assign tasks, right? So let's say that there are so many tasks, T1, T2 and Tn. So there are n number of tasks, right? So the job of real-time operating system is to assign that which task will be executed, which task will be executed when, right? And that is decided by the type of scheduler, right? So we have seen that there first was your clock driven task scheduling. So what is the meaning of clock driven task scheduling? So clock driven means there is a clock, right? So tasks are scheduling at the scheduling points that we have studied, right? What are the scheduling points where tasks are scheduled, right? So in the clock driven case, the clock timer is set, which is occurred periodically, right? So every period, let's say the period is T or P. So every period P, the timer interrupt is coming, right? And every period P, the tasks are scheduled, right? So these clock driven task scheduling are most widely used in different embedded system applications, right? So clock driven task scheduling can be categorized into three categories, that is, one is endless loop, another is simple task cyclic executive, and third one is multi-rate cyclic executive. Okay, so what is endless loop? So endless loop is basically very simple kind of task scheduler where there is no HL processor. Okay, so there is no OS basically. Okay, there is no operating system, or there is no HL processes, right? So it's a very simple, it is used in very simple kind of program. For example, let's say that your program has some dozen of line of codes, right? That's it. So it can be a temperature controller, or it's a very simple program, or it's a very simple embedded system application, right? So we don't need any sophisticated operating system, right? So what this endless loop, as the name indicates, the loop is running every time, right? So the loop is running every time, so there is no operating system required actually. So what is happening in this case, there is a timer whose time is set, right? So at particular time the interrupt will occur. Okay, interrupt will occur, and the simple tasks are executed, right? It's a very simple task. Okay, so that is simple endless loop. Now the next is cyclic executive. It is also more or less same, but in this case your tasks are coming with a single frequency. What is the meaning of single frequency? The single frequency meaning is that all tasks are having same period, right? So we know that the T1 will be executed, let's say, for 5 millisecond, then T2 will also be executed with 5 millisecond, right? Or they might be coming with the same period. It could be different also, right? So let's say this is 5 millisecond, this is 15 millisecond, but they are coming with a random period, right? So the arrival time of each task, let's say it's 10 millisecond. So every 10 millisecond there is a task which is coming. So in this case your period is single. Okay. The third type of task scheduling is multi-rate cyclic executive. So in the multi-rate cyclic executive, basically your tasks are coming with different periods. Okay. So for example, let's say that your T1 is T1, T2, T3. So we know that each and every tasks are coming every 5 milliseconds. So if it is starting from 1 millisecond, right, so we know that T2 will come after 5 milliseconds. So it will definitely arrive at 6 millisecond, and then this will come at what is the name, 6 and plus 5 is 11 millisecond, right? So this is happening in the simple cyclic executive, right? But in multi-rate your arrival time is different. So let's say that T1 is came at 1 millisecond, T2 may come around 8 millisecond, it may come 11 millisecond. So the arrival time is uncertain, right? It is aperiodic. So in this case the period is different. So these kinds of tasks are called as multi-rate cyclic executive, right? So in this case, yes, so I forgot to mention before the execution task. So we have to execute, one is task scheduling. Okay, so task scheduling we are studying, right? So task scheduling means basically what task is assigned when, right? So we know that which task is assigned when. So this is in the task scheduling. So apart from the task scheduling, there is something called voltage scheduling. Okay. So what is voltage scheduling? Voltage scheduling means so let's say that T1 is so let's say that all tasks are running with a constant voltage, right? So let's say that all tasks are running with 5 volts, or let's say 3 volt, right? So what will happen, let's say, and how is it possible? So in embedded system application you can glow the LED with the low power, right? So it will not that much brightness. So right, so we can actually give different powers. So if you give more power, the task will be executed fast. If you give less power to that particular task, then the task will be executed in a more time, right? So in that case it is helpful in scheduling your task or to meet the deadlines, right? So let's say that your this is the arrival time. So I am denoting arrival time by the arrow which is going upside, right? So and there is a deadline. So this is the deadline that I am denoting as a down arrow, right? So let's say that your task is arrival here and it start executing here, right? So T1 and it finishes here. So let's say this is running at 5 volt, right? This is the task T1. So here is the deadline, but it has executed even before than that, right? So what I could do, if I optimize the power constraints, right? So if your embedded system application has power constraint, the voltage scheduling is very, very important in maintaining the power constraint issues in different embedded system application. So what I can do, so let's say this is the arrival time and the processor is not free. So let's say they consider only you have a single processor system, right? So you have a single processor system. So let's say this is your task 1 T1 and it is executing at a certain time. So it is your T1 and this is the deadline of this T1, and at the same time T2 also came at the same time. So let's say I'm starting here. So at the same time T2 also came. Okay, so T2 cannot start executing because another task is running and we have single processor, right? So it has to wait. So once this is executed, it will start executing from here, and let's say this is the deadline. Okay, so it is completing at the deadline itself, right? So here you see that here it is the case, and let's say that one more case is there. So in the third case, this is the somewhere here. So let me draw in the next page itself, and let's say that this is your arrival time of task T3. Okay, and T2 has somewhere it is finished here, so I can start T3 executing here, and this is my deadline, but it is executed here, and after that there is no task, right? So what I can do, so let's suppose this task was running at 4 volt, I could actually reduce it to 3 volt because I have time up to here, right? So if I run it at 3 volt, it may take little more time to complete it, right? So we can save power, right? So we will not get any reward in the real time if we execute the task faster, right? But we should meet the deadline. This is the constraint. So now so you understood what is the meaning of voltage scheduling. So voltage scheduler does this part actually. Voltage scheduler does this part of scheduling. Okay, voltage scheduler does this part of voltage scheduling, right? So which task, so let me write it down, which task is assigned with what voltage, right? So voltage scheduler job is this one. So there is a task scheduler and there is a voltage scheduler. We will see and study. So it can be categorized broadly into two categories. One is fixed type of, or we call it as a static voltage scheduler. Okay, a static voltage scheduler. So in static voltage scheduler, your deadline of each task is known priori. Deadline is known for each task, so we know the deadline before. Okay, so we can formulate as an IP problem, right? And your decisions like what task will be assigned at what voltage, so the decision are taken at compile time. Okay, so we want to compile it, so that time we can take the decision, but we cannot take the decision compile time, because we know already when the task what is the deadline of the task, right? So we can maintain the voltage, right? Because we know that deadline is still there, so I can reduce the voltage up to what, right? And next type of category of voltage scheduler could be dynamic voltage scheduling. Dynamic voltage scheduling. So in a dynamic voltage scheduling, decisions are taken at runtime. Decisions are taken at runtime. Runtime means suppose one task is executing and another task came, right? So in that there might be two cases. One case is arrival time is known. Arrival time is known. So we know that next task is about to come at what time, right? But here we don't know the other things like what is the deadline, what is execution time and all, but we know the arrival time for sure. So this can be called as SD type of voltage scheduler. And second case is when the arrival time is not known. Okay, so it's a kind of aperiodic or sporadic task. So we don't know the aperiodic, also certainly we know the arrival time, but sporadic task when there is a emergency occur or there is a failure, right? So that is a sporadic task, so suddenly it will come, right? So in that case we don't know the arrival time, so in that the decision might be taken completely dynamically, right? So these type of schedulers are called as DD type of schedulers, right? So we will see these voltage scheduler in detail, right? So later on we will see in detail. So now we will come back to the again first task, scheduling task. So we were studying, if you go back, we were studying about cyclic executive, right? So we have studied there are two types of task scheduler. One is clock driven and another is event driven or priority driven task scheduler. So first was your clock driven, in that we were studying cyclic executive. So first we have studied endless loop. So there is no operating system, simply an endless loop is running. Endless loop means, so your task is your T1, it is executing, right? Then again a periodic interrupt will come, then next task will be executed, right? So period is fixed here. It does not matter your task is completed or not, right? It has to transfer to the other task, right? Right. So in cyclic executive, if I draw it, the flow of cyclic executive. So first will be the system initialization, right? So system initialization, basically how operating system will execute your task in a clock driven manner. So first system will be initialized, so all parameters will be set. The next is the data input. Then we have a processing, right? So we call it as periodic application processing. So the period is fixed here, so some application will be there which will be executed. We will see one example also. So this is your processing. Then data will be output, and then we have to wait for next cycle. So wait for next cycle. So then again there is a periodic interrupt, so that will go back to the data input, right? So if I take example of this cyclic executive, so let's take an example of a temperature controller. Okay, so there is a sensor, so all the first of all parameters of temperature, sensor and other coding parameters are initialized. So here sensor is starting taking inputs. Okay, so it has taken some input, so based on that some application will be there, right? So based on some temperature I want to start the cooling system or I want to start heating system, so that processing is done and it will give some output of the task, right? So it has executed, so depending on the application it will give some output, right? Then this task is done, so again their periodic interrupt will come. So here what is happening, after the wait cycle there is a periodic interrupt. So periodic interrupt means that this task is fine. So let's say that every 1 minute I have to monitor the temperature, environmental temperature, right? So this period will be 1 minute. This period will be 1 minute. So timer is set at 1 minute. So or clock timer is set as 1 minute. So every 1 minute again it has to go to the data input. So again sensor has to take the data and then do the same thing. Okay. So this is an example of a cyclic executive, right? So all the process periods are multiples of cycle times, right? And here we are not assuming any preemption here. Preemption means in any high priority task is coming, so we are not assuming right now any preemption in the this kind of scheduler. So what is actually, so we are studying clock driven schedulers. So in that what is there actually, as I told that there is a interrupt periodically, right? So how does this interrupt comes? So let's say this will be your clock. Okay, this will be your clock, which period of this clock is fixed, right? So every rising edge of this clock will initiate an interrupt. Okay, the next interrupt will come here, the third interrupt will come here, right? So this is how this clock driven schedulers decides the scheduling on the interrupt instance. So these are interrupt instance, and this is also known as scheduling points, right? We have studied about scheduling points. Okay, so every scheduling points, this clock driven scheduler decides the task to execute, right? So there will be decision, right? It is not necessary that I have to assign T1 task or T2 task, first come first serve. It depends, it can be any kind of scheduling. We will see. It could be round robin, it could be first come first serve, right? Shortest execution time. There are so many types of the scheduling, but here in clock driven scheduling, the scheduler takes decision at every clock, right? So every period the scheduler has to take a decision, right? So which task to run when and for how long. Okay, so so we need some kind of table, right? So we need some kind of table. Okay, so what this table will keep the data. So it will keep that there are task T1, task T2, and the tasks are coming continuously, right? So there can be n tasks, right? So we have to maintain that, which task to run first, right? Which task to run first. So I have to keep some scheduling, right? So it will, depending on the task, I will schedule it, right? When T1 will go, when T2 will go, right? And for how long in the it will run, right? So there could be three types of scheduling here. One is round robin. So once it's finished, so everybody will get equal time, right? So it will run in a round robin fashion. Second could be time, or we call it as table driven scheduler. So these all are types of clock driven schedulers, right? And third type is your cyclic schedule. Okay, so in the clock driven, these are most widely used at the offline. It is also kind of static scheduler. Why do we call it a static scheduler? Because we know that all the information about the task a priori. Okay, it's not runtime scheduler. So it is most widely used in embedded systems. So any temperature control system, we know that every 1 minute I have to sense the temperature, right? But these schedulers are not good for which kind of task? Aperiodic or sporadic task. Sporadic task. Sporadic task means suddenly it will come, right? So hardware failure or those kind of tasks. So these schedulers are not suitable for these tasks, right? So if I talk about the advantage and disadvantage. So what are the pros of this kind of schedulers? So one is these schedulers are used in compact programs. So you have some dozen lines of programs, or it requires less storage. Okay, less storage. So code is very short. The another advantage is these are efficient. Why these are efficient? Because here low runtime overhead. Why? What is the meaning of low runtime overhead? So the runtime is extremely slow, right? So we know that you know we know that you know we know that that clock is we know the period of the clock, right? So for example, we know that here at this instant your scheduler will schedule the task, then at this instant scheduler will schedule the task, and the next one is, in this case, scheduler will schedule the task. So if you see here, you know, time is fixed, right? So timer has to fixed once. Okay, so timer is done. Okay, so we have fixed the time and it's done. So we know that it is coming at every time. So that runtime overhead will be very less, because the overhead due to scheduling will go. Okay, but in endless loop, what was the endless loop? So your task T1 was executing, T2 could be little, it may take more time, so it will be end here, right? Then T3 is having different time slot, right? So in this case, if you see, if you assign the task in a, depending on the execution type of the task, then you know what will happen, again and again timer should be set again and again, right? So here also I had to set a timer. Here the period is different, so again I had to set the time with a different execution time. Here the T3 is little lower, so again we have to schedule the time with different time. So scheduling is also creating some overhead. Okay, so that is avoided in the clock driven cases because it's fixed. And what are the disadvantage? The disadvantage is it does not support aperiodic and sporadic tasks. Okay, it does not support these tasks. So now we'll take an example how this task scheduler or table driven scheduler works. So as I told, if I go back, you see that we have defined three types of clock driven scheduler. One is a round robin, table driven and cyclic scheduler. So round robin is used in traditional operating system. It is not used in embedded system application, because embedded system applications are used in real time. So in this case it is round robin. Okay, so we will not discuss about this, and we'll discuss about table driven scheduler and cyclic scheduler. So we'll see first what is table driven scheduler. So as we have seen that in a clock driven scheduler, the it is it is run at compile time. Compile time means basically we know that the task execution time. Okay, it is an offline static kind of scheduler, right? So some information should be there about the task, right? So that information is stored in a table that is called a schedule table. Schedule table. So let's say that you have a task T1, it will be assigned at this time, and you have task T2, it will be assigned at particular time. We are actually deciding the schedule based on their execution deadline, right? So Tn will be executed at that time, particular time Tn, right? So if I write a very simple program, so first I will define schedule table size. So how many tasks I want to keep it in the table. So schedule table size. So let's say that I want to keep it 10 tasks, right? So timer has to act. because timer is periodic here, depending on the clock, right? So there should be a timer handler, right? So then I have to define next time and current time, so which task is executing currently and what will be the next task. So I am defining two variable for the same. Then what will be the current one? So current, which task is executed currently, so that is in the defined in the schedule table. So I will check the entry of schedule table. So schedule table is schedule table entry. So using entry I can check which task is tsk, whatever the objective function we are defining. Okay, so this is object tsk in the schedule table. So I will get that current task, right? So your entry will be incremented. Okay, so it will be your entry plus 1, it is incremented mod by the schedule table size, right? So we have to check actually what are the tasks. Okay, if all the tasks are executed, I have to take mode of that. And next time we'll store that which task should be executed next, right? So how it will be seen? Again it will see the table. Okay, then entry dot time plus get time. Okay, so I will take that. Next time how it will define, suppose currently let's say that we have the T1 task running, right? So next time will be when? So we know that this will run for, let's say T1 will run for 10 millisecond or let's say 50 millisecond. Okay, so the next time the T2, the another task, can run after 50 millisecond. It cannot run before than that. Is it clear? It cannot run before than that, right? Okay, so it cannot run before than that because it will take that much time to execute, right? So table entry, it will take the time of that particular task plus get time. Okay, so the next time will be that one. Then set timer. So your set timer will be set at next time. Okay, so it will be set at 50 millisecond. Okay, then execute task current, right? So current task will be executed and finally return and then closed, right? So here you close this. So this is a very simple kind of program for a table driven scheduler, right? So this is how it schedules. Now if you talk about the scheduler, so let's say that roughly if I give numbers, so your T1 task takes 90 millisecond, and if your T2 task takes 120 millisecond, T3 takes 75 millisecond, and so on. So these tasks are taking very less time. So if your scheduler takes more than this time, so for executing a scheduler program itself takes 200 millisecond. So that is not a good scheduler, right? So we should not increase this kind of scheduler because the run time itself is very much less as compared to the scheduler time, right? So due to so what is the disadvantage in this kind of setting? In this kind of setting, the disadvantage is the timer setting overhead is quite high, right? So in clock driven, when we talk about table driven scheduler, in table driven, so first task will be executed at 90 millisecond. Does not matter when the task also arrived. First it will execute, then it will come to the next one, right? So again scheduler has to schedule, okay, and the timer will be changed because it has to run for 120 millisecond. Then again T3, so it has less time, so again it has to schedule, right? So every time the timer has to schedule, and if it is taking too much time, your timer setting overhead is much higher than the even run time, right? So these kind of table schedulers are not encouraged, right? So this is the disadvantage of table driven scheduler. Now next type of scheduler is cyclic scheduler. So cyclic scheduler means you have to set one time. Simply I write it down. The timer should be set once. So once you have set the timer, that's it. No need to set again and again. So let's say that you are setting the timer at 50 millisecond. Okay, so every 50 millisecond only, the timer interrupt will come. Okay, timer interrupt will come, and these kind of schedulers are very popular because it does not have runtime overhead. It does not have timer setting overhead, right? So these are very popular and used in embedded system applications, right? These are very important in resource constrained application. Resource constrained application means your embedded system has application limitation in the processor. Okay, so you have one processor of, let's say that 8-bit processor, okay, very low end processor, and your memory is also limited, some kilobytes you have. Okay, so you cannot waste it, right? It's a table driven scheduler, you have to keep for some time, right? So that you cannot maintain, your queue cannot be maintained, right? If one task is having largest time, that is culprit, right? Other has to wait. So in that case that requirements are quite high. So clock driven schedulers are much used in resource constrained environment. Okay, because there is no kind of sporadic task. Sporadic tasks are less in embedded system application, but if you talk about nuclear reactor, right? So there are many of the sporadic tasks can come, right? So you need a sophisticated embedded system. Okay, so you will be having a high-end embedded system. Okay, high-end processor you will have. So definitely it can handle so it does not have processor limitation, it does not have memory limitations. Okay, so that we will study when we will study the priority schedulers. So in that priority scheduler, no constraint on resource. Okay, there is no constraint on resource. So so what is happening here in the cyclic scheduler? Your time of the clock is fixed. Okay, so let's say that you have defined it. Okay, so you have defined it, let's say that scheduler period. Okay, so your task T1 takes let's say that 30 millisecond, your T2 takes 40 millisecond, and your T3 takes 60 millisecond. So here they are telling that scheduler period we have to define. Scheduler period. So scheduler period is the period after which the timer will be set again. Okay, so scheduler period will be also known as hyper period. This is also known as hyper period, or we also call it as major cycle. Okay, so how do you decide it actually? So for deciding the scheduler period, we have to take the LCM of this execution time. So what is the LCM? LCM will be 120 millisecond, right? So what I will do, I will define, so here I can define it. So this could be a phagic period, and here to here. So let's say this is your 120 millisecond, right? And this is we are calling it as major cycle. So what is the meaning of major cycle? So whatever the tasks are there, those are assigned here. Okay, and this major cycle is further divided into we called as frame or minor cycles. So let me divide it. Okay, so this is called as frame, okay, or minor cycle. Okay, and this I left it here. What is the meaning of here? So here scheduler is scheduling. Okay, so it takes some time. So this is your scheduling time. Scheduler will also take some time to schedule, right? So then you can assign one task T1, then you can assign T3, then you can assign T2. How we will decide which task to assign first? That is, there are many constraints on that. Okay, we will study later on, right? So in this case, in one major cycle, we are defining the scheduling instance. Okay, so that also fixed. Okay, so how will I decide the scheduling constraint? So this is, I am calling it as F1 as one scheduling constraint, and here actually F2 will come, here F3 will come, and here let's say that you have Fn. Okay, so at these instants, scheduler will take the decision. Okay, this is the scheduler period. Okay, after which the timer will be again set. Okay, but here in minor cycle we are dividing into frames, and this how do we decide frames? Okay, what should be the length of a particular frame? Okay, so and how so there are two challenges here. One is how to decide the frame period. Another is which task is to assign. Which task is to assigned to which frame. Okay, so let's say that this is your major cycle, this is one major cycle, this is another major cycle, right? So what we are doing here, we are dividing one major cycle into let's say that 1, 2, 3, so let's say there are 12 frames. Okay, so I'm defining it here as 12 frames. So in 12 frames you can assign the different tasks, right? So one task could take more time, one task even starts here and execute here before the deadline itself, right? And one task could take complete frame, right? So how can I actually decide the frame length? So frame length is decided depending on the maximum execution time. So in one frame the task should be executed. Okay, so there might be idle time. So here you see that this frame is ideal, this is executed even much before than that, right? So but the condition here is the frame time must, in the frame time the task must be executed. Okay, so frame time must be and another thing is, so let's say that your your frame time, so this is your major cycle, and your frame time must divide the major cycle. Okay, so it should be integral multiple, so frame time must be an integral multiple of major cycle. This is very necessary. Why? Because otherwise frame time will not match to the major cycle, right? It will exceed the major cycle. So even if it is not matching, you have to exceed the major cycle. Okay, that is compulsory, but it should be integral multiple of that. Now how to construct this schedule? So we have a schedule table. Okay, so let's say that this is your one frame, this is your fifth frame, right? So we are assigning at the first frame task 1, and we can assign another task at here, right? So F5 means task 5, let's say. So as I told that clock driven schedulers are static schedulers. Static schedulers means we have the information of the task execution time and deadline, right? So we have to prepare a static schedule, right? So cyclic executive repeats the schedule. Okay, so let's say that we have assigned different frames to different tasks. So what is happening? Your major cycle is repeating, and cyclic executive, what it does, it will just repeat that schedule only. So if F1 is again assigned, F2 is same, right? So same way it will repeat it, right? So in this case, what is the disadvantage? So let's say that some task will be executed here itself. Okay, all tasks are executed, these are frames. So this time could be an ideal time. Okay, this could be ideal. There will be no task running. There will be no task running in that particular time, right? So there may be a result, many ideal intervals. Okay, so if so, it attempts to arrange so that it can occur periodically. Okay, so let's say that you have a task, and task is defined as your execution time. Okay, execution time, and it could have your period, like after what period it has to repeat, and third could be the deadline. So we'll take a very simple example. So let's say that you have a task A 1 10 10. So 1 is your execution time. Period means every 10 minutes it is 10 millisecond it is coming, and this is the deadline. Okay, so it relative deadline means it should be executed in 10 millisecond itself. So B, another task is there, B, that takes 3 10 10. C equals to 2 20 20, and D equals to 8 20 and 20, right? So what is major cycle? So major cycle is 12 millisecond. Why? Because the maximum deadline is 20, right? So task must be completed before the deadline. So major cycle should be 20 millisecond, right? And now frame size. So frame size means in one frame the task should arrive and end. Okay, so if I take and it should be integral multiple of this one, integral multiple of major cycle, right? So I can take 5. Okay, I could take 10, I could take 15, right? So if I take 5, there is one task which will not be executed completely. So this is not the ideal choice. If I choose 10, all tasks are completed. So I can choose minimum frame length, that is frame length must be 10 millisecond, right? So this is how we decide it, right? So you want to how can we partition? So first we decide the frame length. Okay, so I have chosen some frame length. It could be 10 also, even it could be more than that, right? So it is a very typical task, okay, which is difficult actually. So what are the problematic things in partitioning the major cycle? Frame size. Okay. Okay, it is very difficult to select the frame size. Once it is done, then what you will do, you divide the jobs into slices. So it is recommended that your frame size should be low. Okay, but sometimes your some of the tasks will be which will be much more having much more execution time, so those tasks cannot be executed in that frame size. And if I take larger frame size, I will get a lot of idle time. That is not recommended, right? So what I will do, I will divide the job into slices if needed, and then place either jobs or slices into the frames, right? So at every frame border, cyclic executive performs scheduling. Okay, so if I talk about summary here, so these are major cycle, all these are major cycle. So every major cycle, scheduler will schedule the timer. Okay, and at every frame, your cyclic executive performs scheduling. Cyclic executive performs scheduling, and there is no preemption here right now. We are not talking